So I'll switch to English before I introduce you to our audience. So thank you for being here, Marta. I had a short introduction telling you guys about how data is important along the value chain, especially for e-commerce. We are collecting data in many touch points, from the layouts where we connect, where we have the awareness from the brands until we deliver the goods to the end users. So there's huge amounts of data being there, and to discuss and talk about more what happens in between that process from acquiring a customer until you deliver the final experience. I'm going to invite you to the stage. She's graduated in computer science and electrical engineering from Carnegie Mellon, one of the most well-known universities in the United States. She has an MBA in marketing and strategy in the same institution, and she has led B2B projects worldwide through Coca-Cola and Unilever, and now through Amyris, where she's the Vice President of Data Analytics and Customer Insights. So please welcome to the stage, a round of applause for Marta Dalton.
Olá, bom dia. Desculpe, falo solo pouco de português. Estou aprendendo, mas sou mais impressionante em inglês. And we all hope that I'm more impressive on the stage. So that means that I should probably stick to English today. So nice to meet you. I'm Marta Dalton. I am the Vice President of Data Analytics and Customer Insights at Amyris. That means I focus on data science, on analysis, figuring out what happened and why it happened, and then trying to predict the future. What's going to happen and what should we do about it? This is me in the past. I've been doing this for coming up on 20 years now, so I'm not new to e-commerce. I've worked for some big names. The last time you saw me on this stage was in 2018, and I was working for Coca-Cola. In the interim, I've spent the past 4.5 years as the Global Director of B2B e-commerce at Unilever. At Unilever, I was working with 25 countries to get them live with B2B e-commerce. We went through a marketplace project. There was a lot going on in terms of technology, and in my career, I've done a lot of different platforms. But what we're going to talk about today is building a marketplace. So talking about the experience, this is how we're going to go through it. We're going to talk about the overall market in Latin America. We're going to talk about some of the key challenges you'll face if you choose to build a marketplace, or if you choose to partner with other brands to build a marketplace. And then we'll talk about a framework so you can walk away from here with something that can help guide you in your decision if you choose to build your own, or if you choose to partner either in Latin America, in North America, or in Asia. So first, let's talk about what's out there. We're going to start with the most basic. What is a marketplace, right? It seems fairly obvious. Mercado Libre is very popular down here in Latin America. We have Amazon. There's Alibaba over in China. Lots of different marketplaces. But here's something to think about. There's multiple ways to do business on a marketplace, right? If you do business with Amazon today, you have the opportunity to sell directly to Amazon, or you can operate as a third-party seller. Both of these have different challenges, and we're going to talk a little bit more about those. But first, let's talk about the opportunity. We all know Brazil is huge, right? Brazil is huge. Brazil is growing. So I'm very happy to be here today in this market. 156, this is in US dollars. Apologies for that, but a lot of what I get is in US dollars. But this shows you the annual growth, and there's Brazil right up at the top, right? 40% growth. This is in e-commerce. So all of Latin America, of course, seeing explosive growth, especially in the past couple of years. In 2020, all we were doing was sitting at home, we were buying online, we were starting to buy on marketplaces, and we were starting to become consistent, right? We were ordering subscriptions. That is what's led to one of the biggest growths. And let's talk about what those marketplaces are. I'm sure this is no surprise to you. Obviously, Mercado Libre, one of the largest, and specifically in Brazil. You can see some of the other popular ones as well. Magalu, of course, here in Brazil. And then a couple of different ones across the different countries down here. So there's a lot of marketplace activity. And why is this important? It means that customers are already used to shopping across brands, across stores, and adding multiple products to their cart in a single store environment. Customers are already used to buying on marketplaces. So what does that mean? Well, it means that marketplaces are now popping up all over the world. So here you have a category and then some of the visitors, and they're becoming even more popular. Some of these are starting to grow outside of Latin America, and it's really starting to influence the way that brands think about how they do business. So this one's a little complicated, but I'm going to break it down for you. I love this report from McKinsey, and I link this in my slides. So brands in the CPG, that's consumer packaged goods, that's your Coca-Colas, your Unilevers, Procter & Gamble, anybody in that space, they have only generated 25% of the growth. The largest brands are driving the smaller part of the growth, despite the fact that they are half of sales. So let's break down what that means. The largest brands are no longer driving growth in the world of CPG. That means smaller brands, that means independents, that means new players. So how, as a larger brand, would you take advantage of the fact that these smaller, newer entrants are driving the growth? How do you start engaging with some of these smaller brands? Here's another piece of it. This is why CPGs are starting to think about marketplaces. In order to grow, in order to drive the growth, that means that you actually have to increase your sales more than is likely possible. So this is a bit of a challenging chart, but here's what I'm going to point out to you. So this is how much CPG companies are essentially selling, and then you've got your margin. In order to hit their growth targets, they have to actually deliver more growth than is likely possible. So there's a bit of a margin squeeze, right? They can either cut costs or they can drive growth with prices, with sales. That's unlikely to happen. So how do they do that? If they are not the drivers of growth in terms of brands, and if they're not the drivers of growth in terms of margin, how do CPGs handle that? Well, they're taking a look at partnering with other brands around the world. Here are the things that are most important when you think about trends. This is how this impacts marketplaces. So price sensitivity. Yes, everybody wants to find the best price. This is a way for consumers to feel confident. They're seeing multiple products in the same location, so they know they can shop across brands. They've got the ability to interact with those small brands. And you can see on the right here how this is going to impact in the next 10 years. COVID is driving some of this behavior. Yes, we're getting past that, but you're still seeing the same behavior even in a post-COVID world. So rise of marketplaces. I include the mass merchant squeeze here. What does that mean? Think of Walmart, Target, Carrefour, all of these mass marketers, all these mass merchants. They are now starting to own customer data, customer relationships. We're seeing the death of the first-party cookie, right, or the third-party cookie. So we are not going to be getting that information from cookies anymore moving forward as Google starts to deprecate that in Chrome. So now these mass merchants, they have the relationship with the customer. They have all the data. So as a brand, how do you get a part of that data? Target's not going to give up that information. Amazon will to some extent. But how do I get that data for myself? One of the ways to do that is to sell direct. And if I'm selling as a marketplace, that allows me to compete with this mass merchant growth trend. All right, so here's what's going on in online marketplaces, just a little bit around the growth. So B2C marketplaces over the next couple of years, $3.5 trillion. That's huge, right? You could see 47% increase in global online purchases via marketplace platforms. So yes, of course, this includes Mercado Libre, Magalu, Amazon, et cetera. But as consumers are getting more attuned to purchasing on marketplaces, other brands will either have to participate in those marketplaces or partner and start their own. All right, so I think we're all convinced, right? Marketplaces, this isn't new for anybody, but now you understand why CPG brands are looking towards marketplaces where the growth comes from. Let's talk about what can go wrong. All right, what are your biggest challenges? Think about working in different countries. In one of my past roles, one of my biggest challenges was legal competition. So as a brand, you cannot sell your competitors' products in many countries. So then what can you do? If you cannot directly sell your competitors' products, how do you create a new entity, a new company, or a new partnership that can sell your competitors' products? Thinking about the payment options. In some parts of the world, cash is still the most important. So how do you deal with a cash-based society when previously maybe you were doing digital payments, whether it was WeChat Pay or PayPal, which is popular in the US, any one of those other methods? Thinking about multiple languages, of course. Here we are in Latin America, Portuguese, Spanish. If you get over to Asia, starting to support multiple languages across different countries can be very challenging. So the first step is to ask yourself the question, what are all the things that can go wrong? And so you start making a list of all of the different issues, whether they're technology or they're trade or they're economy based. What do you need to know about the people? One of my previous big challenges was trying to launch an e-commerce presence in a country that was largely phone based. 75% of my customers did not have smartphones. So they wanted to call in their orders. They wanted to talk to customer service. I wanted them to buy online. Could I train them to do it? Somewhat, but it was very challenging because I'm trying to change their entire behavior. Another problem was that I worked with a country in the Philippines. They actually have a very strong use of Facebook and Facebook Messenger. One of the reasons for this is that Facebook has made accessing their app data free. So if you don't have to pay for the data, of course, you're probably going to use that more than anything else. So that makes it very challenging to get somebody to come to my app, to my website, when they have to pay for the data to interact with me, but they don't if they interact with Messenger. So what did I do? I set up a customer support team that was going to interact via Messenger, right? So these are some of the key things you'll need to know about the countries in which you do business. Start looking for any limitations on data access, on pricing, on 5G capability, and then on consumer interactions. Are consumers more comfortable via phone, via in-person? You may have to start building your marketplace with feet on the streets, with actual people. All right, so this one's going to be hard to read. Don't worry, I blew it up for you in the next slide. It's going to be a little bigger. So, technology challenges. What are the different things in technology? These are some of the key areas that I am always paying attention to. And the reason I bring up these technology areas, I use it as kind of a roadmap, and I link to this in my slides. So again, payment gateways. We talked about payment challenges. Shipping and logistics. So this is one of the other pain points I've had in the past. You think about delivery, it varies by country. So you think about the United States, right? So we use US Postal Service, of course we have FedEx, other countries, so you've got Rappi here, you've got similar delivery services. How do I focus on the way that consumers like to be delivered to? And if I'm running a marketplace, how do I structure that delivery? So if I am selling everything, that means I can have my delivery people come to my warehouses, take the stuff to the customers. But if I'm running a marketplace where I'm no longer in control of each of the providers, how do I control that experience for delivery? Because you can only control what you own. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The site search, the personalization, all of these are the technology building blocks of e-commerce. But they're also the technology building blocks of a marketplace. Why? Because it's the exact same experience customers have already come to expect. The other key one that I want to draw you to here is loyalty. Loyalty tends to get forgotten. You may have it on your e-commerce site, but again, think about it from a marketplace point of view. How do I provide loyalty points when I'm selling lots of different brands, lots of different products, different margins, different engagement? So how do I control that experience? Do I have to get all of my sellers to agree? Am I just going to put forth a platform and say, this is the loyalty program, you're either in or you're out? I'm going to be honest, that latter approach is the better one. Whenever I've tried to make everybody happy, you make nobody happy, least of all me. So if I try to get everybody to agree, it doesn't work. Highly recommend saying, look, these are the payments that we will accept. This is the way we're going to structure loyalty. This is the email platform we're going to use. These are the advertising options available. You lay out what you want for your marketplace, and then others will either choose to participate or not. If you try to negotiate, you will never get anything done. This is probably the most important part. Now, we all know Amazon has a fabulous seller experience. This is the key question to ask yourself. Who is the owner? So product data, Amazon has even had a challenge with this in the past. If you look out there on the internet, you'll see lots of different articles around product data problems, whether it's the details of the product, it's duplicate listings, it's incorrect images. If you don't control the product data and you allow your marketplace sellers to upload, you can't control the customer experience. So how do you force everybody to adhere to your product data? You can give them standards, you can set a template, but at the end of the day, the best way to do it is to force them to be attached to the same product, right? So you either need a review process or you need some technological way of matching them up so that everybody is playing from the same product data. Pricing and promotions, who owns it? If I don't control pricing, it means I can no longer control how competitive my marketplace is. Now, same with promotions. If I don't control those, it means that some of my sellers could be offering promotions at other vendors. So if I want to own this, how many of my sellers are actually going to sign up for that? Maybe you decide that you want to do a first party and a third party business, or maybe you decide you want to add a second party. That word doesn't really exist, but I'm going to pretend that it does, at least for the purposes of this. So first party is where I am selling directly, right? I buy your stuff, I sell it to consumers. Third party is where somebody else is selling and I just facilitate the transaction. Second party is where we share some of this. So maybe I am in charge of approving promotions. Maybe I'm in charge of setting price thresholds, but you still control the logistics. You as a seller still have the ability to ship. Or maybe I control the fulfillment because making sure that products arriving on time is very important to me. And I cannot control that post-sale customer experience unless I control the fulfillment. So which parts of this do you want to own? Which parts of it are you prepared to own? Because we're going to talk about the details of what goes into each one of these. It is a very big undertaking, especially as you think about advertising. Advertising is what we would call a double-edged sword. So it's got the benefit of bringing additional margin, right? Advertising on your site, whether it's banner ads, it's the search ads on your site, it's email, whatever you're doing, that is pure margin going into your pocket. However, now you have to be able to manage it. What kinds of advertising packages will you sell? Is anything going to be free? If you start off with something for free with your sellers and then you try to charge for it later, it's going to go badly. Ask me how I know. So whenever I've tried to give somebody something for free to entice them, of course they're going to expect that for free forever. Now it might make sense, as I've done in the past, to offer a baseline free package. So think about creating, okay, here's the advertising you get just for joining my marketplace. Welcome, Mr. Ms. Customer, great to have you as a seller. So here's your free package, but if you want to be able to interact with the customer more, here's my bronze advertising package, here's my silver, here's my gold. Here are all the different ways that I'm going to allow you to buy into the experience, to get more visibility, to be able to promote certain products. So how will you structure that and how will you manage it? Because it's not just about relationships, but it's also about managing all of the changing advertising within your platform. Now, in this new cookieless world, this is a huge opportunity because it's a great way for you to get data from customers and then also engage with other vendors, other CPGs with that data. This is what some of the big players like Walmart are doing. But if you have the ability to do it in your marketplace, then you can also be a competitor in that arena. How to structure your operations. This is one of the biggest challenges. So think of everything that goes into your e-commerce store today. Whether it's customer support, it's managing the marketing and sending emails and WhatsApp messages out, it's answering the phones, it's supporting coupon creation, whatever it is. It's a whole bunch of tasks, right? Where are they going to live? So the first step is list everything that you know you need to do from the beginning. And then it's a question of in-source versus outsource. So what I like to do in the past, I focus on keeping those strategic things in-house. So think about your promotions, your marketing strategy, your calendar, all of those things that are most important to the margin, to the revenue of my business. I want that with me. Outsourcing, I am happy to give away things like creating and deploying emails, like answering the phones. Those types of things, I'm happy to outsource. And then you have to ask yourself, where will it be? And we're going to talk a little bit more about that here. So global versus regional versus local, depending on how big you are, where do you want your tasks to sit? Now, I've talked about there are some pros and some cons from doing this at each level, right? You can scale at the global level, you can sort of scale at the regional level. You're going to hit challenges with culture and with language. So what's the best way to do it? Well, it really depends on what the task is, right? So here's how I like to break it down. Your little light bulb there is strategy, and then your cogwheel is execution. Generally speaking, depending on the task, I like to keep strategy at the regional or the global level. It allows me to centralize it. It means I have a consistent experience across countries. It means that at the executive level, we have more ownership of that experience. As opposed to at the local level, you're going to find a lot of execution, because this is where people are creating and deploying emails. This is where people are answering the phones. Not only do they need to speak the language, but they have to be able to understand the cultural subtext that goes with the language, right? There are different things in the same language, Spanish is a great example, that mean different things based on different countries that you go to. All right, so let's talk about a framework. So we've already talked about some of the challenges that you've got to deal with. We've talked about the technology, a little bit about the seller ecosystem, and then the operational structure. Where are all of your tasks going to sit? And one more thing I want to say about the operational structure. I have tried this at the country level, where I have everything in a single country. It actually doesn't work all that well, especially if you're trying to scale a marketplace. The reason is that you think of all those functions that I had on the last slide. I'm going to cheat and go backwards a little bit. So think of all these different things. If I have to staff this in every single country, it is going to be so expensive to hire all of the people that I need. If you think about putting some of those at a regional level, I can start to share that expertise, whether it's the marketing or it's the technology. One of my favorite ways to do technology is to create a global platform with all of the core features you need. Because you think about creating e-commerce or a marketplace, it has the same stuff, right? You have to log in, you have to search, you have to be able to add it to the cart and pay and check out. A little bit more than that, but generally, there's a lot of things that are the same. If I have that functionality, let's say 75% of the functionality I need, then I can take that, I can copy paste that build to different countries, and then I can customize the 25% I need on top of that. The advantage is that I've done a lot of the work already. If I want to launch in a new country, all I have to do is essentially copy paste it. I've been using that model for over 10 years now. It makes it very easy to set up the tech and the operations to support it. And then in each country, if you start adding new features, you can bring them back into that core platform. So you get the best of both worlds. You get a scaled up, centralized development team with the learnings of all the different countries and the ability to customize in all of those different countries and then bring the learning back. So that's my favorite way to do that. The other one I'll mention is on marketing. I love to regionalize marketing because you can take the same kind of campaign and then tweak it. So again, think about the core campaigns you have in your business, a welcome campaign, a win-back campaign, abandoned cart, all those things. Make a template, create a starter kit, which we're also going to talk about, and then you can copy paste that to each of the countries or to each of the sites. It doesn't have to be different countries. All right, so let's talk about defining success. You cannot understand where you're going if you don't have a roadmap, right? This is my favorite equation. I've been talking about this for, 15 years. So revenue in e-commerce equals the number of sessions times the average order value times the conversion rate. That's it. It's a simple equation. Now here's why that's important. If I can increase any one of these three things, I can also increase my revenue. So how do I increase sessions? Well, I think about the key metrics like frequency. How often somebody comes back to buy defines how many times they visit the site, right? Adoption, same thing. Correct product information influences SEO, which again influences how much people show up to the site. So these are my primary metrics, and then these are my secondary metrics. So promotions, what's the performance of promotions? Your checkout experience, so my checkout abandonment, my cart abandonment. This is all of the key stuff that directly feeds into one of those three metrics and, therefore, directly impacts revenue. Here's the top ones. So if you're curious what I stick to whenever I'm looking for my top metrics, it's these. They directly relate to each one of those primary metrics. So last 3 months active means how many purchases someone has made in a month. And if you ask yourself how many purchases matter in a month, the answer is, I don't know, it depends on your site. So generally, you're gonna find a purchase frequency of once a month. That's on average. I mean, you might find 4 to 6 weeks, especially if you're in the beauty segment like I am now. You might find somewhere on the order of 8 to 12 weeks, depending. So I've seen all of those different frequencies in my career. Usually I see a frequency that is at least once every 3 months. And that's why I say last 3 months active, because in my career, I keep seeing at least one purchase every 3 months as kind of being that benchmark. Loyalty, how often does somebody come back to buy? How many purchases have they made in a year's time? And then we get into average order value. How many SKUs are they buying, especially across how many different sellers in a marketplace? And then what is that average price per SKU? What's influencing that? There are 2 ways to increase your average order value. They can buy more stuff or they can buy better stuff. And by better stuff, I mean higher margin stuff. So figure out which one of those they're doing and how you influence that. And then conversion rate, looking at my individual product conversion. What products do customers look at and then never add to cart or never buy? What happens with my sellers? How many people are looking at different seller products and then never bothering to add to cart or check out? So looking at my conversion across those different areas. I also linked something in here. It's got a list of 35 plus KPIs. So there are more than this, but these are my personal favorites. All right, let's talk about the starter pack. I've been using this campaign structure again for 15 years, and it hasn't failed me yet, so I think I'm sticking to it. Acquisition means getting customers to sign up, whether it's for a newsletter, it's for signing up on an account. The adoption piece is figuring out at what point customers become sticky with you and your marketplace. This is true for single vendor e-commerce as well. At what point do customers continue to buy? And if you want to get statistical here, I like to look for anything over an 85% confidence level. If you don't know what that means, find the nerds in your company and ask them about it, or I'm happy to tell you later. But an 85% confidence level means that you are pretty sure that after this order, they will continue to buy. Over the past 15 years, this has almost always been somewhere between 3 to 5 orders. Every time, every job I've ever worked at, it's somewhere between 3 to 5 orders. And it gives me the opportunity to say, okay, I want to really entice customers with promotions to get past that third order, because then I'm pretty sure they're going to keep buying from me. Engagement means to keep them coming back. So acquisition, I'm focusing just on getting you signed up. Adoption, I want you past whatever that sticky point is. Engagement, I want you to come back to the site and buy again. I want you engaged with promotions, with new products. And then retention, looking for that churn. Being able to predict churn is extremely important here. So looking for the rate at which customers won't come back. So again, we're talking a little bit about analysis. At what point do I know a customer is truly lost? And at what point do I know that I have a chance of winning them back? Again, speaking generically, over the past 10 to 20 years, usually you can always win a customer back within the first 12 to 16 weeks. After they haven't bought from you in about 6 months, they're usually gone. In some industries, it can be a year, but usually it's 6 months and they're pretty done. So we're going to talk a little bit about selling, and I know I'm running short on time, so I'm going to kind of go fast through these. But you think about that selling experience, and yes, I'm stealing from Amazon here because they are the gold standard. So this is a comparison between first-party and third-party business, and I bring this up because as a marketplace, you have to decide which kind of business you're going to support. Do you want to support both of them? Do you want to start off maybe with third party and get to first party later? Here's a better detail of it. I like this one because it really outlines all of the different challenges you have to face as creating a marketplace. So how do I deal with reviews? Is it a review for a product or a review for a seller? What about my content? How am I going to require people to create a content template so that all of that product data looks the same or gives the chance for customization, or at least make sure that I don't have 100 of the same product listing on my site? How am I going to structure advertising? We talked about that. Fulfillment. Am I going to allow them to ship? Am I going to force everybody to stock in my warehouse? Because again, I only control the experience if I own that part of the experience. And if I'm willing to let them own part of it, which parts will I allow my sellers to own? And then what will I do to try and make them adhere to the experience that I want to have? So yes, you can set standards, yes, you can set guidelines, but at the end of the day, you can't make them do anything. So figure out which parts of this experience are most important to you as a company, as a marketplace, and decide that's what you're going to own. And then the rest of it, maybe you're more flexible on, and you allow your vendors to control it. This gets into the detail. You don't have to read this, but everything we just talked about, here's all of the individual details about what these pieces mean. So what is seller management, the experience? What are all the parts of that marketplace? And there's 2 of these. Don't worry, I'll be posting the slides. I see a lot of phones up. So this gives you all the detail. And at the end of the day, you may realize you're just not ready to do that. There are a lot of vendors that will give you the technology, but the technology does not make or break your success. Technology is 10% of it. Operations, 90%. Figuring out how you're going to support customers, how you're going to fulfill orders, who's going to own pricing and promotions, all of those things, and being able to staff that and support it in one country or in multiple. That is always going to be the biggest challenge. Any one of these technology providers, I'm sure, would do a fantastic job for you. But you'll notice I only have one little bit on technology because the operations has always been the biggest challenge. Just also a heads up, of course, there's lots of marketplaces out there. This shows you the US, Europe, and China specifically. There's lots of competition. Does that mean you shouldn't consider doing a marketplace? Not necessarily. Depending on what country you're in, there may not be a lot of competition, and or there may not be a lot of competition in your vertical. So if you operate in a very specific space, whether it's via products or you serve a very specific customer, it can still make sense. All right, if you remember nothing else, if I get off this stage today, think about that technology and what you want to do with it. Where are you going to put stuff? Strategy and execution. You have to define success. And then you really have to be honest with yourself. With everything that goes into this, are you prepared to support it? And if so, on what level? Local, regional, one country, single multiple vendor, maybe only a handful of vendors. And once you've got that level of detail, then you've got your answers and you can go ahead and get started. All right, thank you, everybody.
That was amazing, Marta. I was looking at your presentation. I felt like I was watching Moneyball when the guy is like rebuilding the team with the metrics, and then you just stepped in and showed us how to measure the important KPIs on the marketplace. And I have a few questions for you.
Sure.
It's not every day that we have someone like you here with us in Brazil, so thank you first. I'm still processing so much valuable information. What are the challenges if you are considering building the strategy to watch which KPIs will make the difference? At the end of the day, I see some companies facing difficulties in using those KPIs to making decisions throughout the day. That is connected to people, that is connected to operations, that brings the quantity side connected to the quality side. What is the impressions that you can share with us in order to use the KPIs? What would be a good framework to connect to the decision makers?
Yeah, so I think the first part is always find out what KPIs matter to which person. So you think about an executive dashboard, maybe they care about that revenue equation I put up there, they care about inventory turns, they care about financial metrics. Keep it as small as you can. So I like to have no more than maybe 5 to 7 metrics on a dashboard because nobody can really pay attention to anything more than that. So maybe there's a marketing dashboard with 5 to 7, executive 5 to 7, logistics 5 to 7. Once I have that, figure out how to get that data. And it might not be pretty. There are times that you might be dealing with spreadsheets or you might be downloading and trying to upload somewhere else. If that's what it is, that's fine. Understand that experience, and then you can build the technology to suit the experience you want with displaying the KPIs.
And when we talk about creating value and capturing value and delivering value, to understand who your customer is. And then you need to manage your strategic resources. Because in order to build something advanced like this, you need talented people. And it all comes to the question, how do you develop those talents?
Yeah.
Where do you find them? Because otherwise, it's kind of hard to build such a connected system to collect data, transform data, and build dashboards out of it in order to deliver, to make good decisions at the end of the day.
Yeah, so hiring is hard right now, right? Because there's so many companies, there's a lot of great talent out there. I've actually been working remotely for 8 years. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in the United States. If anybody knows where that is, I'll be really surprised. And that's great, right? It doesn't matter where you live. You could live in Sao Paulo, you could live in Amsterdam, you could live in middle of Kentucky in the United States. And because everybody is remote now, it's made it a lot easier to hire. I always look for foundational skills. I want to know in the data world that you understand SQL, that you understand Google Analytics. I'm actually happy to train some of the things on that. I look for enthusiasm. I look for somebody who's interested in learning new things. Maybe they've taken some online courses on their own. And that kind of hunger for technology is what's worked out really well for me in hiring in the past. And as for where they are, luckily these days I don't care, just that they want to join.
Okay, and I think there's an important question here where you have multiple channels, that you have 1P, you have white label, you have 3P, you can be either a seller or you can use the marketplace services. How do you see as an industry entering the market? There are different journeys from the beginning, where the customer comes from, where you acquire the customer, and then they go all through different channels until you deliver the goods to them. So how do you see a correct framework that we should approach in order to differentiate each journey to deliver value at the end?
I think the interesting thing is that there is no one correct framework, right? So you could do, the point is to meet the customer wherever they want to meet you. So having a wide net of marketing, making sure that you've got social ads, paid search, email, you're able to engage with the customer wherever they are, bring them in. If they want to chat live with your agents, great. If they want to do the whole purchase by themselves, also great. I've seen in a lot of my customer journeys, it takes 3, 8, 12 visits for people to come back. You know, in Google Analytics, you can see how many visits and the assisted conversions, you know, that come from different traffic sources. So for me, I think it's just building in that flexibility, making sure that I have lots of ways for my customers to interact with me so that they get to choose. And then after the fact, I can start analyzing how did they do it and what kind of customer chose this path versus this path, so that moving forward, I can start guiding them, or I can look for the customers that convert best.
Okay, now just to finalize, what's your opinion about acquiring customers through search engines versus all the social media out there, when you have more chance, if you're an influencer, to influence people around, to explain about the product? Which journey from the acquiring perspective do you see, you foresee in the future as the good one for the CPG customers?
Yeah, can I answer it as yes? Can I just say yes? Because the short answer is all of them. You think about paid search, and I still get a lot of really great performance out of paid search lower in the funnel. I will still get a lot of people who are looking to buy, they're making that final decision. Social, even paid social, tends to live a lot at the top of the funnel for me. So people who are maybe interested in the brand, or I'm educating them on ingredients of a product, or I'm educating them on use of a product. Social has a very powerful play in that part. So both are a part of my marketing mix, and I think they always will be. I mean, since social came on the scene, organic and paid have been a very important part of what I do. And I think that it's just going to change maybe the percentage of the mix and then where they are in the funnel, but they will both always be important.
Okay, before we finish, I'm a big fan of Marta, so I want to take a selfie with you guys, clap you on the back if it's not a problem with you. So let me do this.
This is the most Instagram moment of my day.
Okay. Round of applause for Marta. Thank you very much for
Muito
being
obrigada.
here. Obrigado, Marta. Thank you.
E aí, gostou do vídeo? Então não deixe de curtir e compartilhar. Aqui do lado tem 2 sugestões que você pode gostar. Até a próxima!